As the Chair said, I'm Tunsall. For those that didn't meet me at the last meeting, I'm the Director of Transport for City Deal. What I'd like to do is give you an introduction just to lay out what the principles were for the scheme and what we've been able to, what we've taken on board in terms of board direction that we've had following your resolutions and so on. As Jocelyn said, there is no comment back on the resolutions yet, but obviously there were questions raised and the board has come back. Councillor Lewis came back and gave us certain directions that we needed to go, which was great. And can I first and foremost say thank you very much for the input, particularly from Hurst Park and from Milton and from Cam Cycle, because it's been really helpful. Can I also say what we've got here is a concept. What we'll be taking to the board is a concept. What we're not taking to the board is a final design. There is a lot of work still to do. So what I'm showing you here is not necessarily, in terms of the junctions and modifications, there's work to go through. And we're already talking about having meetings, workshops with the LLF to talk about bus stop positions, to talk about the trees and other issues as we develop it out. So this is not, by any stretch of the imagination, the final. It is very much a concept. So I can just start and go through. So just to remind you, these were the exec board's project objectives for Milton Road, and we have been given the money to do certain things with, and we have got to follow that through, otherwise the money at the end of the day will not be there. So there are certain issues we've got to adopt, and these were agreed as part of the City Deal agreement. So what we're looking for on this particular scheme is a comprehensive priority for buses. So it's a bus priority scheme. But it also includes safer and improved cycling and walking as well. We are looking to enhance the environment, so we are looking at the urban realm, as I say, from wall to wall, so it's your boundary wall if you live on Milton Road to your opposite, the opposite boundary wall. So we're looking at the whole of the road itself. We are looking at improving the capacity of Milton Road in terms of sustainable trips, whether that be by cycling, walking or public transport. We are looking to improve bus patronage because that's where we'll get the biggest modal shift from in terms of people out of their cars. And as part of that, obviously, we're looking to reduce the general traffic levels. Okay, so then following the earlier meetings of the LLF, the board came back, Councillor Herbert came back and said we were looking to maintain a provision of grass verges and trees. I know the first scheme that you looked at was just basically wall-to-wall road and footway, so it was, as we call it, wall-to-wall blacktop. It is not that anymore, and hopefully you'll see that when we start going through the presentation. That we also are looking not to provide double bus lanes, so we're not looking for a 4-lane highway down Milton Road, so you do not have a 4-lane highway. There are bus lanes down Milton Road, but they are not together, so you end up with a bus lane and 2 running lanes for traffic. And we're looking at removing the band turns. Those are the band turns at Gilbert Road, Arbury Road and King Hedges Road junction. So we've removed those, all in line with the Do Optimum. As I say, thank you. As I say, we did really welcome the feedback that we got back from you on the work that you'd done on this, particularly in terms of what Milton Road, the residents, Hurst Park and Cam Cycle had done. So we've taken on board the Do Optimum design aspirations and principles, and those are the concepts that we've taken forward. However, we have modelled that, and it is fair to say we need to look at some modifications, and we'll go through that, but some of the proposals will actually double the queue lengths on Milton Road. So basically you will have twice the number of cars queuing now at some of your junctions than you do currently. That's not including, bear in mind, we are looking to design for 2031. We're not just looking at traffic levels today, we're looking at 2031 when Waterbeach comes on stream and the additional houses that start coming out of the additional trips that start coming out of that housing development. Thank you. Okay, so just going back, what we've worked on in terms of the Do Optimum, we've looked at providing sufficient infrastructure. I have to be fair, bearing in mind, buses were a key priority. We actually ended up with less bus lane than we've currently got. We've ended up with about 200 metres more bus lane than we've currently got. We've gone from 1,100 metres to about 1,300, and we've been working with the bus operators to identify the most optimal areas for providing bus lanes. Again, just on one side of the road. They're not on both sides of the road at the same point. They are on both sides, but obviously at different points. And we've been looking at maintaining the access to the junctions, but one of the areas that we will come on to is we've looked at remodelling the Elizabeth Way junction, and that impacts, one of the options impacts to try and get cycling and walking impacts on Highworth, and we'll come on to that. It is an option. These are just options. These are not designs that are worked up and said this is what we are going with. These are options. It's getting the concept. Once we've got the concept, we can start working up the design and working that in with workshops with yourselves. We've got a tree planting scheme along Milton Road. It isn't on the regular basis that you've got within the Do Optimum, because to be fair, we've taken into account all the accesses that are there, because there are a lot of driveways coming onto Milton Road, and the regular planting, which to be fair was just showing a concept out of the Do Optimum scheme, actually plants trees in some of those driveways. So we've planted them where we can actually get the trees in, but it's the same effect. It just doesn't look as regular on the drawings. We've provided a junction solution that doesn't include the closure of Union Lane. We have some options on that, and we can work those options up. We have a preferred option, and we'll talk about that, but we have other options there as well. And then we've looked at, as I say, fitting all of this in with existing drive accesses, and that does affect some of the proposals, particularly around the Elizabeth Way roundabout. So I'll show why that is shortly. Trees. It would be disingenuous of me to say that this does not affect the existing trees. We are doing a lot of work, and the Do Optimum solution has that work identified. It will affect the trees, it will affect the tree roots. We are looking for a wholesale replacement of the tree stock, but we are looking at that with putting trees in that are mature trees, so trees that are 3 to 5 metres. Why 3 to 5 metres? It depends on the species that we're going for. But a lot of trees that were planted, not saying down Milton Road, but a lot of highway trees that were planted in the past were more like forestry trees, were not opportune for, not the right sort of variety for an urban environment. So we need to get trees that are right for an urban environment. And you'll know the problems. You'll know footways that are lifting, on cycleways that lift, where the roots are actually throwing up the pavement there. So what we're looking to do is put trees that are more suitable, but they are mature trees. We are not looking, well, semi-mature anyway, 3 to 5 metres. We are not looking for whips of trees. We are looking for good trees that are in proper planting conditions that we will look to survive. But that will be a workshop that we will work through with you. And we've been talking to the city tree people about that. Okay, thank you. So that's just a picture of one of the trees that's been recently planted. It's not actually on Milton Road. It's, when I find that, it's on Coldham's Lane. But that's an example of the type of tree that we'd be looking to plant. So they're not small trees by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't want to mislead you. They are not mature trees in that sense, in the type of tree that you've got now. Okay, so if I can just show you what I mean about, next slide please. So this is the existing Elizabeth Way roundabout. The problem that we've got, that we'd never allow today, but this is custom and practice now, is we have accesses that are actually into either the approach junction or actually onto the roundabout itself. And we'll come on to that as to what issues that creates when you're creating particular arrangements on your roundabout. So we've got to take that sort of thing into consideration. We can't, well, certainly to achieve certain things you close it. Well, I'm not too sure the residents of those properties would take kindly to closing. we couldn't anyway, but it is an issue we've got to factor in. The other sort of considerations, thank you. So we've got it is the driveways. There are a lot of driveways down, and you can see certainly the bottom picture, there's a lot of uninformed highway accesses. So they're not approved accesses by any stretch of the imagination, and certainly in the past, certain authorities have taken a very strong line on this, where they've actually gone along and started noticing people, telling them they've an unapproved access, they have to get a proper access there, and there's a cost involved in that. One of the good things with this is we will go along and we will provide accesses wherever an access is required. So we're not looking at all. We'll do that as part of the scheme. So people that have been probably using accesses in the past that haven't been approved, that are just driving over the verges or trying to use just one access and winding round the tree. Well, just as an aside, I've got to say this, as I came up the other day up to the business park, as I was coming back down, there was a car that was actually driving on the footway on Milton Road to access a verge. That's the sort of thing that we're getting. We will, not that we're going to accommodate parking on the verges, one of the questions earlier, but that's the sort of thing. And yeah, these are the same sort of people. I don't know whether they live there or not. They may have done, they may not have done. But that's how people operate at times. And would I like to say I've ever been there before myself? Well, I won't answer that one. So next slide, please. So, the upshot of this is we're looking to improve the urban realm. But the scheme has also got to give us the transport infrastructure improvements that we require to deal with the anticipated flows that we're going to get on Milton Road from the opening of Waterbeach, and in fact on the flows that we get now. But we base this on the Do Optimum scheme. If I can give you a few visuals now of what it looks like now and what it looks like in the future. So ignore the yellow line, that's Google. That's, I think, just the direction that the vehicle's travelling or you're travelling in, because that doesn't occur on the highway. So this is outbound north of George Street. This is what our visualisation will be outbound north of George Street afterwards. So as you can see, the trees are retained. If you go back, actually there's a lot more trees than there is there now. So the trees are retained. One of the interesting things, yeah, a lot of the boulevard effect is a lot of the trees are in people's gardens, a lot of the greenery is in people's gardens, and that's what builds on that sort of impact. When you actually look at the highway in certain places, there's a dearth of trees. Next one, please. So this is Askham Road. That's what it looks like now. That's what it will look like in future. So we've got the verge retained, we've got trees on both sides. There isn't a verge on both sides. We've got cycling provision there on both sides, not perhaps as much cycling provision as is in the Do Optimum, but we'll go through that in terms of width. But we've maintained the busway there as well. Next one, please. So this is Downham's Lane. Again, lots of green verge. Weren't a tremendous amount of trees, but as you can see, you get that impression is more about individual gardens and the volume of trees and hedges and so on in individual gardens. But that's what we're aiming for, and that's based on the Do Optimum. But there are certain things that gave, perhaps in terms of the width of the cycleway, but as I say, we'll come on to that. Okay? And this is Ramsden Square. There are more trees on there, but that's what we're looking at afterwards. So I hope you can see we have tried desperately to keep the concepts that you've got in the Do Optimum. I think, personally, and bear in mind I'm a highway engineer, so probably I'm not the right person to talk to, but I think we've retained, personally I think we've improved the tree line boulevard effect of those. But most of the issues occur around the junctions, so I don't want to mislead you. It is the junctions that we need to look at. So just on the slides, which we will make available, put on the website, that just gives you where the pictures are being taken and in which direction they're looking. So when you look on the slides, you can get a better feel for that. So that's the introduction. I would just re-emphasise, this is about developing the concept based on the do optimum. This is not a final detailed design. There is a lot of work still to do on this. We are going to work this through with yourselves to get the detailed design right. But obviously the key issues will start to come out when you start to look at the junctions. So at that point, Chair, I'm happy to stop and take any questions about that. And then if we could let Neil, as you suggest.
Yeah. Now, does anybody have any questions to Chris Tunsall on the presentation so far? Yes. I have three. Here, Alex, yes, and then at the back there, please.
So go back to the Ashton Road. There's a cycle lane that's not, yeah, this one. So this it's not, the cycle lane is not, it's on the other, it's on the road side of the trees. I can see a divider there. Is that a painted white line or is that a curve? It's kind of hard to tell.
That'll be a curve, the drop curve that we put in. So it gives that element of segregation, but obviously it's not total segregation.
Yeah.
My name's Anne Hamill, and I'm looking at the concept as a whole as you've presented it so far, and you also mentioned the impact of the Waterbeach development, where there is a railway station already. And my question concerns the impact that the North Cambridge railway station will have on the whole of Milton Road. And the station provides people living in the north of Cambridge and in the villages access to Cambridge via the main railway station by using the North Station, and ultimately they'll have access to Admiral's too. So surely this will reduce traffic levels, but the case is that it's been predicted that there will be huge increases in peak time traffic. So I want to know what measures, and also I want to know what measures are to be taken so that residents who live in the area will have easy access, bus access, to the North Road Cambridge railway station.
We don't know what impact. I mean, at the moment, it is not running at the level. The North Station is not running at the level of usage that was initially predicted. But it's early days. It will build up. And you are right in saying there will be people that will use that. The issue that we get with drivers, once they've made a decision to drive, even with park and rides, they know where they need to go. Part of the problem is the trains nor the buses actually normally take them in that direction. They have to change. They very rarely, once they make that decision, unless they're deciding just to drive to the park and ride or the station, get out at that point. They carry on driving.
So they're not going to use the buses then, you're saying?
Well, they don't. No, because the logic that goes in terms of if they can get on the train, yes, and then if they can get down to the train station and then do the change over there. But I actually had a gentleman, I shan't say who it is, who goes to the Addenbrooke site, drives past Babraham every day, but still drives to the Addenbrooke site, and that's the sort of that's what happens. I know the logic doesn't say that should happen, but that is actually what happens.
So the provision of any amount of bus lane and numbers of buses is not going to affect it, if your logic is right, or your observation is right.
What we need to do is to ensure that we give all the alternatives that are possible. We're not going to get everybody that currently goes on the bus going to the train station. So they will use the buses. And they do use the buses from the park and ride. We know the park and ride does work. What we don't know is how many people are physically going to... If people are coming in from Waterbeach, why are they going to go past the park and ride to the station necessarily?
If they're coming in from Waterbeach, they can get the train from Waterbeach.
Yes, but we don't know how many will do it. That is the snag. What we do know is that as part of all the proposals, this is why we've had City Deal, to actually improve the transport network.
Yes.
North Cambridge was part of that.
Yes.
We've got to improve. If we don't improve, do something on Milton Road, then it's not going to meet any of the objectives we got for City Deal money.
Incentivise the people who are living in the new communities, then
I agree.
they will use the public transport.
I agree. But it's also the people that live on the top side of Milton Road, they come through here as well. So even people, the residents that live on Milton Road, actually drive down Milton Road. So they do, everybody affects everybody else. It's not...
Which is why I asked the supplementary question about bus access for Milton Road residents and people in the area up to the station.
Going back to...
Sorry, Chris, we're not going to get on with the presentation if we keep having question after question. I can see that there are 4 hands up. We can respond to Anne's question in writing later. But there's a green T-shirt here, and then there's Charles, and then there are 2 there, and that's the end for this section of the discussion. We'll then proceed with Neil, and we'll move to the Gilbert Road intersection, and we'll have about 3 or 4 questions there, and then we'll move on. So could we have those 4 questions, and if you can remember them, Chris, don't respond to each question, wait for the 4 questions if you would. Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Mine's in relation to the Downham Lane picture you just showed. Is that okay to ask now?
Of the tree?
Yeah, well, of the cross section, because you were a bit vague about the cycle lanes there, and obviously at the moment, one of those lanes, there's a lot of young families, lots of new developments off Downham Lane, where people use the current off-road cycle route to get to the shops. So there's a lot of two-way cycle traffic at the moment. So if you were to say that you might remove the two-way cycling, which you seem to suggest is quite probable, there's going to be a shift in people's habits. And I would have said about 50% of people are going to cycle the wrong way down there. And particularly if there's a curb anywhere, there's going to get accidents and conflicts with pedestrians. I would say about 25% of people will jump in the car because, particularly with people with children, if they don't think they should cycle illegally the wrong way. And about the other 25% will probably pull out down the lane and do the scary turn out across the road. So if there is going to be a change in behaviour, does your modelling cover numbers of cycle lanes and things like that? Or is your modelling all about car traffic? Because obviously you're proposing to remove an existing cycle facility that's very heavily used.
Good. I think we've got the message, but please do not answer yet, Chris. Yes.
Sorry, Richard Cushing. Could I ask, please, what numbers you are talking about? I mean, you talk about an increase in traffic as a result of Water Beach and that kind of thing. What are the actual numbers that you're expecting to come down Milton Road? Because this is, I think, is quite crucial. What are the numbers that are going to go on the railway and such like, and modal shift? The second thing is you've shown, in some areas, you've shown cycle paths on the side, and I was under the impression they would be two-way. Does anybody disagree with that? Because I thought they were going to be two-way. Now, if they then go onto the road, it's not going to be possible to make them two-way on the road. Maybe you can clarify this.
Right. Now, there are 2 more. Yes.
Okay. My question went live. It's about, you said that this is a concept for trees. It's a 2-part question. So are you going to have landscaping, a proper professional landscaping, to landscape the trees into the streetscape in the roads? Because my feeling is that what you're actually doing is giving you an impression of what you're doing is making the roads look wider. So you actually do need professional expertise in people to actually look at how you address the problem of making residential roads not look wide. That's the first question. And the second question, which is very opportune because Lewis has just arrived, is the sense that everybody's talked about air quality and pollution. So, for example, how does greenery and trees fit into a minimum amount of air quality, and how is air quality and pollution going to be addressed in the overall concept of this scheme?
Right, thank you. And then there was one question just down here. Yes. That must be you. Yes, I see your hand.
Hilary Goy, puzzled of Hurst Park Avenue. If you don't think people are going to abandon their cars, why has Cambridge North Station been built And why are you bothering with bus lanes at all?
Yeah. Can you respond to each of those, Chris, and then we'll move on?
Okay.
I've got some reminders if you
Okay, thank you. So, is this still working yet? Fine. So in terms of the cycleways, there are still section of two ways. That we will work up as part of the process, so we're not saying we won't. It is a matter though of getting as much as we can get in. Bus priority is an issue down here. Actually what happened with the scheme was the Do Optimum scheme, we took bus lanes out. So we were trying to get bus lanes in, and I know I'll come on to the question. It's like anything else, we've got to provide, in terms of the quality of alternatives, we've got to provide the quality of alternatives. If people see themselves sat in a bus in the same queue as they're sat with traffic, they will not naturally look to get out of their car. And their logic will be, if I drive past this park and ride, because we've already got a park and ride, if I drive past this park and ride now, I will save X minutes in parking up, walking to the bus, getting on the bus, by which time I'll be part way down Milton Road and I'll be part of the problem. So that's why we put the bus lanes in, to encourage people to see that the buses are faster and are more reliable than actually sitting in the car.
Sorry, no, could we move on, because otherwise we're not going to get to the end of the Chris.
What numbers did you anticipate?
Sorry?
I was talking about local cycle journeys, and you've just been talking about buses. Is that
No, just the local cycle journeys, in terms of there will be elements of that are two-way. I thought that was the original question.
Cycle infrastructure.
We're introducing more cycle infrastructure than we currently have. Some of it may not be two-way.
In the region where it's used very heavily, you're going to remove cycle infrastructure and you're going to keep the existing bus lane that's there.
I'm not sure unless I'm going to be told we are removing cycle infrastructure.
Yeah, there are two ways. There's complete
Okay.
two ways at the moment.
Right. There is sections of two ways still on there. I mean, it's difficult to tell on that what width that is, but that cycleway on your right is the same width of the footway, and the width of the footway is 2 metres.
Yeah. So is that a two-way one on the right?
Look, sorry, please stop here. Neil, if you're going to actually go through the road, then I think that we'll deal with it at that stage. Yeah, please move on to the next question.
Okay. In terms of the modelling's being done, you asked about Waterbeach. We can only go on what is, and people have asked us, so have we got evidence for that? We use modelling tools. We use the same tools in determining when a development is being built, how many cars are going to be generated on that development. Same way as we do for children, how many children are actually going to be from that development to determine how many schools, places we need and so on. And that is fed into the model. So it is a tried and tested. We could debate that all day, but that is the tried and tested way of dealing with it.
Sorry, please. The next question was about the trees, the landscaping, air quality, pollution.
So trees, as everybody knows, trees are a good air quality thing. The more trees we have, the more carbon it takes out of the atmosphere, which is great. At the last meeting I also mentioned we are starting to talk to the operators now about moving away from potentially diesel engined to maybe hydrogen and electric. So in terms of putting in green, that's good because it improves the environment. Sorry?
Do you have a figure on what we're aiming to deal with on the air quality and air pollution? Do we have a figure about that?
We have figures. Certainly Mitcham's Corner is a major pollutant area in terms of we have an air quality zone and we have those figures. We are looking at putting an air quality management zone in. So whether we think it or not, there are areas that are well above the European standards.
But see, that relates to what you're actually putting in terms of, doesn't it? In terms of the actual amount of green stock, infrastructure, the overall, that also relates to the total on that.
And it's just the actual general environment and the look of it.
And that's also the professional expertise question.
Yeah, the professional expertise will come from the City Council.
Chris, please. We're going to have a workshop on trees. We're going to have a workshop on landscaping. We can deal with all this in the workshop. I think that's a better place to deal with it, because then everybody gets a chance to discuss it. Everybody has a chance to have responses and so on. Could we move on to the next question, which was that if people are not using the North Cambridge station, what's the point of having it there, and why are we having bus lanes if people aren't going to be using it?
People are using it, but people make decisions when they pass certain points. They decide whether to get off at that point because they're going somewhere in the city that's actually convenient, or gets a bus straight there, or they decide they can actually get there faster than the bus. The reason they decide they can get there faster than the buses are tied up in the same traffic that they are, so they already know that they're in advance of that traffic. If we took bus lanes out, how else do the buses get in front of the cars that are already in front of them? So the idea is to get the buses further into the city and make that journey more of an acceptable journey for people. You know, why would anybody get out in a park and ride if you're going to end up in a bus that's behind everybody else that's just driven past the park and ride?
Excellent. Many thanks, Chris.